Just when the government is declaring victory over the Boko Haram insurgents, over 100 schoolgirls were abducted by the group in Dapchi, Yobe State. This has raised questions about status of the war against insurgency in the northeast amidst suicide attacks. How is the government tackling the security situation in the northeast? This week's episode of the program takes a look at the fight against insurgency. Hello there, thank you for joining me on the program this week. I'm Gloria Umezuke. In what looks like a repeat of the Chibok schoolgirls' abduction, the attack on Government Girls Science and Technical College in Dapchi, Yobe State has raised several concerns across the world. Critics question government's action in the area of security. I had a conversation with the Minister of Defense, Mr. Mansour Denali, on the efforts to rescue the girls and other missing persons. But first, what are the stories that made the headlines within the week in the nation's capital? Former United States Secretary of State Mr. Rex Tillerson was in Nigeria on Monday in what was his last official assignment. Mr. Tillerson promised that the U.S. will sell fighter jets to Nigeria to aid the fight against insurgency and tackle other security challenges. While condemning the abduction of the Dapchi schoolgirls, Mr. Tillerson praised the anti-corruption war by President Muhammadu Buhari.
Later this year, we will inaugurate the U.S.-Nigeria Commercial and Investment Dialogue and a Trade and Investment Framework Council, both very positive steps to develop stronger business networks. And the President has charged some of his executive staff back home to begin to develop alternative financing mechanisms.
Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo is calling for an independent governance structure for the Central Bank of Nigeria to enable the institution to enforce greater regulations on the nation's banking sector. Speaking at a banking reform conference in Abuja, Professor Osinbajo asked for increased and regular forensic audit of banks in the country, which he said should be done independently.
It is my view that independent governance of the CBN and closer and more regular forensic scrutiny of banks is fundamental. And I wish to repeat that it is important that the CBN is independently governed and that we have more frequent, more regular scrutiny of our banks. And the scrutiny should be forensic. It should be a scrutiny that's independent, even independent sometimes, of the regulatory authorities.
What's our core value? Humanity.
The Bring Back Our Girls movement is asking the federal government 14 questions pertaining the Dapchi girls and needs answers to them. A co-convener of the Bring Back Our Girls movement, Dr. Obi Ezekwesili, who was addressing journalists during a march to the State House, asked the federal government to explain what they were doing to recover the Dapchi girls.
Within 7 days of our demanding the response to our 14 questions, we shall be suing the federal government of Nigeria for gross negligence that led to the abduction of our Chibok girls.
2 years, Mr. President.
President Muhammadu Buhari has withheld assent to the amendment of the 2010 Electoral Act, which seeks to change the sequence of elections in Nigeria. In a letter to the National Assembly, the president explains that he is declining assent to the amendment bill because he believes it may infringe on the constitutionally guaranteed discretion of the Independent National Electoral Commission to organize, undertake and supervise all elections as provided in the Constitution.
I hereby convey to the House of Representatives my decision on 3rd March 2018 to decline his decision on 3rd March 2018 to decline presidential assent to the Electoral Amendment Bill 2018 recently passed by the National Assembly. Some of my reasons for withholding assent to the bill include the following. amendment to the sequence of the elections in Section 25 of the Principal Act may infringe upon the constitutionally guaranteed discretion of the Independent National Electoral Commission to organize, undertake, and supervise all elections provided in Section 15A of the third schedule to the Constitution. Amendment to Section 138 of the Principal Act to delete two crucial grounds upon which an election may be challenged by the candidates and duly limits the rights of candidates in the election to a free and fair electoral review process.
President Muhammadu Buhari has reaffirmed his pledge to fast-track the nation's economic recovery and growth plan in order to improve the living conditions of Nigerians. Speaking at the official launch of a Malaysian-styled focus lab initiated to speed up economic growth and productivity, the president enumerated successes recorded in his administration, including a surge in the nation's gross domestic product and foreign exchange reserves currently at $46 billion.
We are not relenting on our efforts until these improvements in economic indices translate to visible improvements in the lives of our citizens, which exceeds our population growth. We must therefore continue working to attract both local and foreign investments to ensure we continue expanding economic activities, thereby creating additional jobs for our people.
Determined to take advantage of the successes in the agriculture sector, President Muhammadu Buhari is planning to inaugurate the National Food Security Council, which he will be leading. At a meeting with key stakeholders in the rice value chain at the presidential villa, President Buhari said the council will include governors, ministers, key sector players in the agricultural sector and security agencies.
I will be inaugurating a National Food Security Council that I will personally chair. The council will include governors, ministers, security agencies, and key stakeholders across the entire agricultural segments of farming, fisheries, livestock management. Our experiences today of clashes between farmers and herdsmen, or the challenges fishermen face due to global warming and other environmental factors, clearly demonstrates that our quest for food security has a direct link to our national security objectives. The Food Security Council will ensure alignment and bring efficiencies.
Hundreds of youths marched on the streets of Abuja, mounting pressure on President Muhammadu Buhari to sign an age reduction bill into law. The protesters, who displayed several placards, are calling on the National Assembly to transmit the bill for executive assent within 1 week.
We saw what happened with the Electoral Amendment Bill. And within the Electoral Amendment, there were progressive amendments, but there was an issue that became contentious. So for us, we don't want this not too young to run, but to get caught up in politics.
The Federal Executive Council has given approval to the President to sign the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement in Rwanda next week. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and Industry, Trade and Investment told State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting that further negotiations are ongoing on how to realize the country's export ambitions while seeking to explore the multi-billion-dollar African market.